The silence of a man who once spoke with his soul is louder than any scream. And for a woman whose identity is built on the fragile pillars of an unchecked ego, that silence is the beginning of an internal collapse. There is a specific, chilling moment when the reality of your absence finally pierces through her armor of pride. And in that instant, the world she carefully constructed around your devotion begins to crumble. For months, she moved with the absolute certainty that you were a permanent fixture, a reliable source of validation that would never run dry. She grew comfortable in the shade of your kindness, using your affection as a mirror to admire her own reflection, while rarely pausing to look at the man holding the glass. But the human psyche is a complex machine, and the ego is its most deceptive operator, convincing us that we are invincible right up until the moment the foundation vanishes. When you finally decide to walk away, not out of anger, but out of a profound realization of your own worth, you trigger a psychological chain reaction that her mind is simply not equipped to handle. This isn't about a simple breakup. This is about the total dismantling of her perceived power and the sudden, terrifying exposure of her own deep-seated insecurities. The first stage of this psychological breakdown is denial, born of pure, unadulterated ego. In her mind, your departure is a glitch, a temporary lapse in judgment that you will surely correct. She expects the late-night texts, the long-winded apologies, and the desperate attempts to fix things that she herself broke. She relies on the dopamine loop of your pursuit, a chemical addiction to the attention you provided so freely. Psychology tells us that the ego thrives on external validation. It needs a constant supply of proof that it is superior, desired, and in control. As long as you were chasing her, she felt safe in her ivory tower of indifference. She could afford to be cold because your warmth was guaranteed. She could afford to be dismissive because your presence was a given. But as the days turn into weeks and the weeks into a deafening, consistent silence, the denial begins to rot into something far more volatile. The realization sinks in that the supply has been cut off at the source. The mirror she used to see her own greatness is gone, and for the first time, she is forced to look at the void where her self-esteem should be. This is where the suspense begins to tighten its grip. She starts to wonder where you are, who you are with, and most importantly, why you aren't thinking about her. The ego cannot process the idea of being forgotten. To an ego-driven person, being hated is acceptable, because hate is still a form of intense emotional investment. But being ignored, being met with a calm, resolute indifference, that is the ultimate insult. It creates a state of cognitive dissonance, a mental conflict where her belief that she is unforgettable clashes with the reality of your total absence. To resolve this, her mind begins to obsess. She will check your social media, looking for a sign of heartbreak. But if she finds nothing but a man living his life with purpose, the ego injury deepens. This isn't just about losing a partner. It's about losing the narrative. She was the protagonist, and you were the supporting character whose only job was to adore her. Now the script has been flipped, and she finds herself cast in a role she never agreed to play, the one who was left behind. As the narrative progresses, the scarcity principle of psychology takes full effect. In the human brain, value is often directly tied to availability. When you were always there, your value in her eyes was artificially lowered. You were common, but the moment you become unavailable, the moment you become a scarce resource, your perceived value skyrockets. Suddenly, the flaws she used to criticize become invisible, and the virtues she took for granted become monumental. She begins to romanticize the very things she once dismissed. The suspense builds within her, as she realizes that the power dynamic has shifted entirely. She no longer holds the remote control to your emotions. You have taken back your energy, and in doing so, you have left her in an energetic vacuum. This vacuum is a dangerous place for a fragile ego. It breeds a desperate need to win you back, not because she has rediscovered her love, but because she needs to prove to herself that she still can. She needs to know that she still has the power to pull you back into her orbit, just to satisfy the craving for control. The turning point comes when she realizes her usual tactics are failing. In the past, a cold shoulder might have brought you running. Now those same moves are met with nothing but the sound of the wind. This is the extinction burst in behavioral psychology, a temporary increase in the intensity of a behavior when it is no longer being reinforced. She might reach out with a breadcrumb, a small, low-effort text like, "I saw something that reminded me of you." This isn't an olive branch. It's a fishing hook. She is testing the waters to see if the old version of you still exists. If you remain firm, the suspense turns into a full-blown crisis of identity. She starts to question everything. Was the relationship ever what she thought it was? Was she ever as important to you as she believed? The uncertainty is a slow-acting poison to the ego. It keeps her awake at night, replaying old conversations and searching for the exact moment she lost her grip on you. The narrative of her internal world becomes a chaotic storm of what-ifs. She begins to see you everywhere, in the songs you liked, and the places you visited. The psychological weight of your absence becomes a physical presence. This is the irony of the ego. It tries to protect us from pain by making us feel superior. But when that superiority is challenged, it amplifies the pain 1,000-fold. She is now trapped in a loop of her own making. The more she tries to suppress the feeling of loss, the more it consumes her. She might try to replace you quickly, seeking a new source of validation to numb the sting. But the ego is a demanding master. A new person cannot fix the injury caused by the old one because the injury isn't about the person. It's about the rejection. It's about the fact that you, the man she thought she owned, had the audacity to be whole without her. This is the moment her ego truly cannot handle losing you. It's not the day you left. It's the day she realizes you're never coming back. It's the day she sees you moving on, not with bitterness, but with a quiet strength that she can never emulate. She realizes that while she was playing games, you were playing for keeps. While she was measuring her worth by how much she could make you suffer, you were measuring yours by how much you could grow. The gap between your reality and hers becomes an unbridgeable chasm. The suspense of will he or won't he is replaced by the cold, hard fact of he is gone. And in that finality, the ego experiences a form of death. It is forced to confront the truth that it is not the center of the universe. It is forced to acknowledge that respect is earned, and that love is a partnership, not a conquest. The flow of this realization is like a tide coming in, slow at first, then overwhelming. She finds herself looking at your old photos, not with smugness, but with the longing of a person who realized too late that they threw away a diamond while they were busy collecting stones. The punchy sentences of her inner monologue turn from, "He'll be back," to "What have I done?" The transition is brutal. There are no headings to guide her, no points to summarize her mistakes. It is a pure, raw narrative of as she is left with the haunting memory of a man who loved her enough to leave when she stopped loving him back.